Her boss fired her on a Tuesday morning and told her to have her desk cleared by noon. What he didn't know, what he couldn't have known, is that she'd been quietly preparing for that moment for a very long time. This is Rachel's story. Rachel had worked at the same company for 6 years, good at her job, consistently reviewed well, the kind of employee who showed up early and stayed late without being asked. Then a new manager arrived, someone she'll call David, and almost immediately, something changed. David had a way of operating that Rachel recognized quickly. He took credit for other people's work, deflected blame when things went wrong, and had an instinct for identifying which employees were too useful to target and which ones he could push around. He identified Rachel as the latter, and he started making her working life quietly miserable. It started small, tasks reassigned without explanation, her ideas presented in meetings as David's own, performance feedback that contradicted everything she'd been told for 6 years. Suddenly, she was not meeting expectations despite nothing about her work having changed. She raised it with HR once, early on, was told it was a personality conflict and that she should try to communicate better with her manager. That was the moment Rachel made a decision. If the company wasn't going to protect her, she was going to protect herself. She started keeping records. Every email where David took credit for her work, saved and dated. Every meeting where she'd been talked over or her contributions attributed to someone else, noted, with witnesses where possible. Every piece of performance feedback that contradicted her previous 6 years of reviews, printed and filed. She didn't tell anyone what she was doing, didn't complain loudly, didn't let David see that she was building anything at all. She just kept doing her job well, kept her head down, and kept adding to the file. Month after month, until the file was substantial enough to tell a very clear story on its own. The termination came on a Tuesday. David called her into a conference room with an HR representative present. He told her the company was moving in a different direction and that her position was being eliminated. Rachel says she felt completely calm. Not because it didn't hurt, it did, but because she'd already known this moment was coming. David had been building toward it for months, and she'd been building toward her response for just as long. She thanked them for letting her know, collected her things professionally, and left without a scene. She went home, she opened her file, and she started making calls. First, she contacted an employment attorney who reviewed everything she'd documented and told her she had a strong case for wrongful termination. The paper trail she'd built made it clear the position elimination was pretextual, covering what was actually a targeted retaliatory firing. Then she filed a formal complaint with the company's internal ethics hotline, something separate from HR, which reported directly to the board rather than to management. She submitted her documentation in full, and then she waited. The ethics complaint triggered a mandatory investigation. And once investigators started pulling David's records, his email history, his submitted work, his claimed contributions, Rachel's documentation wasn't the only thing they found. It turned out Rachel hadn't been the only one. 2 other employees had similar experiences, similar patterns of credit stealing, similar retaliatory performance reviews, similar terminations framed as restructuring. None of them had documentation like Rachel's, but hers was enough to open the door. The investigation expanded. What started as one complaint became a full audit of David's tenure as manager. David was terminated 3 months after Rachel was. Not quietly, not with a generous package. Terminated for cause, with findings from the internal investigation placed on record. The company offered Rachel a settlement, significant enough that her attorney recommended she take it. She did. She never went back to work there. She didn't want to, but she says the settlement and David's termination gave her something money couldn't fully capture, the confirmation that she hadn't imagined any of it, and that the 6 years she'd given that company had actually meant something, even if it took a fight to prove it. Rachel's at a different company now. Better culture, better management, work she actually looks forward to. She says the whole experience taught her one thing above everything else: document everything. Always. Not because you're planning to use it, but because the people who would take advantage of you are always counting on the fact that you won't. David fired her and thought it was over. She'd just been waiting for the right moment to show him what she'd built while he wasn't looking. If you've ever had someone at work try to quietly dismantle you and felt completely alone in it, Rachel's story is proof that patience and documentation are more powerful than any confrontation in the moment. This was a dramatized story inspired by real experiences shared online. If it got to you, subscribe for more and let us know in the comments, would you have started documenting from day one? Or would you have confronted him directly instead?